Hi, I'm Fahim Chandurwala. I'll be presenting on financial data feeds. Hi, my name is Fahim Chandurwala. I work for Wolfram. Tom's my manager, and I'll be talking about financial data feeds in Wolfram language. And we are going to go through the new services. We have done some new work with existing functionality, and that's what we are discussing. So it's a nice thing that it tells you it's a text cell. All right. So we'll get on with it. So Wolfram has a Wolfram Finance platform which is built on our existing technology. You can learn about it by going to the website. It has some support attached to it, extra support attached to it, and it also has some built-in CUDA functionality that is exposed only on this platform. So there is a kind of a switch, but it is Wolfram language from top to bottom, just with extra functionality that might be for particular people, niche folks. Okay, I'll probably not go to the website right now, but you can Google it. So with Wolfram language, you have built-in financial data. You have access to it, and the service we use is Xignite, and that is through Wolfram Alpha. So here's a small example. So if I want the last price for Microsoft, it will give me with a quantity and the date attached to it. Then what stuff that you can ask for from within the language is, let's look at what properties we can ask for. So you could ask for 200-day average and so on. And the number of properties that we support at the moment is 73. Now, obviously, there's a point to that, and we'll get to that. So the limitations, when you get it from the built-in functionality, you get 15 minutes delayed data. There is no real-time data, and there are fewer properties that you might get. So there's like how many people there are in the company. Stuff like that is not available. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about services. Now in Wolfram language, we have a way to connect to external services. And the way we do that is we connect to, here's an example with PubChem. This is a data source for chemistry, and I can evaluate this, and I get a data set from external source. Here's here's it is PubChem. And so the new stuff is that to do it asynchronously, and you can do that by doing a service submit of a service request. It's exactly what I evaluated previously. And here's a callback function. Basically, what it says is, when I get the data, just put it in the variable response, or RESP. Okay, and then if I can evaluate this, and that happened, response. Okay, so that's how we interact with external services within the language. So we've always had, since the release of Wolfram Finance platform, Bloomberg Link. And just a small background of it, it used to be built on, if you're really Wolfram language, you know a little bit intricacy of it. It was built on MathLink, and it had some limitations. But we rewrote it to give you more access and more flexibility to do things. And I'll be talking about connecting to the terminal and other stuff that was mentioned there. So to connect to it, you just do Service Connect Bloomberg Terminal, and you connect to it. There's a data directory connection, and host is kind of interesting because it's local host. It's not remote, it's local. What's going on? Bloomberg is very cagey about the data. So what happens is you need an external Bloomberg terminal installed on your machine that talks to the Bloomberg servers, and your service talks to the terminal on the local host at that particular port. So once you connect to the service, you can ask a bunch of stuff. And here's an example with Bloomberg Terminal, and I'm asking for MSFT, US equity, PX loss, bid, and ask. Now, these are not Wolfram names, PX loss, bid, ask. They are provided to you by Bloomberg servers. And there you have it. So you can evaluate. And because it's built on entity, you get some nice decorations with Microsoft as an association, which might be a bit more verbose. And these are some of the properties that you can actually get from Bloomberg. Now, obviously, it's not all the information in the entity property itself, because some of these properties might not be associated with equity market or commodity market. Like, I don't think is pension active members is related to Microsoft equity or equity in general. So how many properties does Bloomberg provide? 50,912 to be exact. And compared to Wolfram built-in, that's 73, so a little bit more. You can also get historical data using the entity language. Yes. Right. Thank you. So here's, and when you use the entity framework, you get a time series immediately, and you have a nice plot. Now, the good thing about the entity interface is it's very easy to write. For example, the date notation is rather nice. This is year-to-date data, and you just give it a span, and 1 week is the interval between the data points. And you can ask for very, very fine data also. Here's an example with all the trades that happen, and it's the tick data. So every code that came in is presented. And that's an event series instead of a time series, because multiple trades can happen at the same time. So and this is what it kind of looks like. So at second one, these were the sizes and the values at which the shares were traded. Now, I kind of want to modify this. This is just plain 5-minute data. These were all the trades that happened. So how many events were there? 10,932. And I'm only interested in the volume. I'm adding up all the sizes. That's giving me that 2370524, a big number. And you can quickly do a small histogram of it. Right? Okay, I'm going to. Those numbers are kind of, I'll get to why I was doing a bunch of arithmetic in just a moment. Then you can get MarketBar data. This is open, high, low, close values. So here the property is intraday bars, and then I have qualifier date object, 5-minute is the bar length. And we have some tools to visualize data. And so here's a trading chart. Oh, that was an yeah. That's the candlestick. I think it's called the candlestick chart, but there's your information. Then I can ask for bar data values. Oh, so this is a different request, but I'm looking at the first 5 minutes, and these numbers match with the tick data that we received from Bloomberg. So they are doing a bunch of stuff, aggregating it, and then giving it to you in market data request, which also you can get using tick data. It's always good to match things just to make sure things are working okay. And so that's an entity stuff, but entities framework has certain limitations as to how do you give options to, you want to have a gap fill bar, you want to get data for the weekends also, or put it as missing. So entity framework has a bit of limitation in its syntax. And power users would like that, so there is a service interface for it. And this is basically all the stuff that I just did using entity framework I can do with service execute. So it's a little bit lower level API in Wolfram language. And here I'm asking for Twitter sentiment. I want to know what Twitter sentiment means. I don't know what that number is. So I can get the documentation for it. And we also provide languages because Bloomberg does. So you can ask for documentation in your favorite language. So that's a bit small example. And here's a historical data. And, oops, sorry, this needs to be, no, it's just wrong variable. Right, and here we don't actually make a time series for you because you might just be interested in the prices. It's up to the user to do whatever they want. But nonetheless, it is easy to get dateless plot and constructing a time series of it without a whole lot of juggling with data and writing complicated code for it. Here's the tick data, which is exactly what we saw, but not as a time series, but as just raw data over here. And same with here. Here I'm only getting 2 data points, yeah. And the numbers, you get the idea. So that's the service interface for Bloomberg. Now, some requests do take a while. And so you might want to say, if you were, I suspect nobody has ever used Bloomberg Link over here. Has anyone ever used Bloomberg Link over here? Oh, OK, excellent. So in previous versions, you would start the user interface, and you would see a bunch of progress bar when you would get the Market Data Explorer. And it would block, and you would wait, and things would happen. So it was fetching the field list to populate. And I'm going to do this. And so it starts the task object, and we are fetching asynchronously. And you don't have to block the kernel. You can actually keep doing it. And it's not taking a bunch of resources away from you. So this wasn't possible in previous version. Now, while that is running, I can actually get live data as I'm getting other requests, because internally it is actually asynchronous. Mind you, while you're processing, that probably wouldn't be asynchronous, because then you'll be blocking the kernel. What I mean by that is, if your function was heavy and it did a lot of stuff, then you would actually be blocking the kernel for quite some time. Now, here's a MarketBar subscription. So as the market is going on, we can get, all I'm doing is I get the data, and I will show you what it all means in just a second. So here's an So here's the live data for Microsoft. And as that is happening, I am also attaching that stuff. And I can go back and fetch the stuff again. Over here. Yeah, that is live, but in our subscription, that is 15 minutes delayed. So it's a 15-minute delayed stream, but your subscription might be allowing you to get actual live data.
So could that be tied to a live graph?
Yes, you can tie it, but I don't want to have a bunch of dynamics in my presentation, just to make things a little bit simpler, but give you guys the idea of this. So now I'm going to, so that was the demo for Bloomberg. Reuters is the new service, and this is a bit of a shorter version. And this is how you connect to the service for Reuters. And you see a bunch of stuff over here. What does it all mean? Reuters gives you a VPN box that you connect to. It's a physical box. So all this stuff, interface, that means on my computer at Wolfram, there is a port, and that's the address of that Ethernet port. The host is also 192. That's actually the Wolfram using the Reuters using the VPN and whatnot. And once you are able to connect, it will give you some login exception methods. So there's a service object representing that. And then it will work with entity lookup. So here I am asking for ask price for Microsoft. And maybe I can do IBM if I'm brave. I'm going to do IBM.n. Yeah. So again, once you connect to the service, you can start doing entity value lookups. And Reuters provides you with 15,000 properties. And what do they look like? They look something similar to Bloomberg, but not quite, and fewer of those. And here's a random sample for it. And there is obviously a service interface for this, service execute, and this will give me a bunch of stuff that comes out from Reuters. And I'm going to do this. Okay. Now Bloomberg data license. This is a pretty interesting service because I wonder if Bloomberg folks talk to us and they say, this is very good. So I'm going to say this is very good. The idea is that the licensing of it is much easier. And what that means is that anybody at Wolfram can use this. With Bloomberg Terminal, only I can use it. It's hard to test when only I can use Bloomberg Terminal. So Stefan, who is the QA, he has to take up my machine or he has to take up my desk when he has to test the stuff with Bloomberg Terminal. Okay, and this is how you connect to it. There's a data dictionary over here which you can download. This allows you access to more properties, and you have entity interface for it. Now, previously I was doing something, I was evaluating it live, but not right now, not with the service, and we'll get back to it why that is. And how many properties does it have? Let's check. So this one has 37,000 that we know of, that they tell us about. And these are a dozen random samples of those. And it has a service interface. And I can do service execute and get the data rather quickly. And historical data also available. Oh, shoot. OK. Well, I'm going to have to skip this example because I just deployed the service, and that means it's going to take a couple of minutes to actually see it. But thankfully, the time series seems to be there. And this is 20 years of data from Apple. And it is very verbose, actually. You can get tick data for a particular entity for multiple years. So you can do a whole lot of analysis with this. Here's a get codes example. I can create a request. I can execute the request. And it gives me event series. This might change, actually. We might just give you the data. But there you have it. So, and this will give you trade, bid, ask, all the events. That's why it's called all codes. And you might see the names are a bit odd: get all codes, codes, get data. Service Connect and services are closer to the API that we use. So it gives you really a close, we want to bridge the gap between actual API and what we allow you to have over here. So there's not a whole lot of decoration about these things. And here I can get the, I don't know what AZO, UN equity is. Usually I forget, but I think it will give me that company. Oh, I know the address of it. That's in Tennessee. I don't know the name. Oh, okay. Now, what Bloomberg Data License allows you to do, because it's a slow service, it takes a couple minutes to get the data, you can actually deploy the service onto the Bloomberg servers and schedule it. So here I have a request which is a couple of fields, and then I'm going to do a scheduled task weekly. So I want these data points for AZO every week. And I can just deploy it, and it's on the Bloomberg servers, it's there. Oh, and it says its data is not yet available, but it kind of gives you, because otherwise it will run after a week, so you don't know what goes on. So it gives you a small message saying that it's been okay, it's deployed. And this is how you can get the tasks. You might deploy the task, and then you might not know what task you have deployed. So for me, it's 179 tasks that I have deployed when I was testing this stuff. And you can redeploy the tasks. And so I did get tasks. Let me just show you what tasks actually looks like. The front end is taking long, but these are the tasks that I have deployed. And the response ID and all of that information. So because you're not going to, most people don't have their kernel running for multiple weeks at the same time. So I think that will be useful. Okay, so the limitations of Bloomberg data license. It's slow. Over there, that's an example of how long it took me to get a time series for 20 years. It took 113 seconds. Why does it take so long? Well, this is what's happening when you do this. It goes, you submit that I want 20 years of data, Bloomberg gets the request, and it gives you a response ID. With that response ID, you query, like, have you got the data? It usually takes a minute or two. It's not processing, it's not doing anything. The code just blocks and keeps on asking after every 50 seconds or whatnot, whatever I have coded, and it blocks for that time. And once it has, it gives you either the error message if something has gone wrong, or usually if it's an error, it will give you that much quicker. And it has no streaming market data. But the licensing is very nice. So in the end, new services coming to WFP, Wolfram Finance platform, are Reuters, Bloomberg Terminal, new interface, and Bloomberg data license. Bloomberg data license, unlike Bloomberg Terminal, will work on any platform. That is Mac, Linux, and Windows. Then the new interfaces we are allowing our services to hook into are entity framework, service framework, and we are also giving access to asynchronous operations. When is this stuff going to be out? WFP 3.0, soon after the release of 12.0 Mathematica. And if you are interested in pre-release, I think there was a bit of a talk about customers wanting their hands on this stuff, and there might be a pre-release program, so you'll have to talk to the right people for that.